Okay, we are going to get started, everyone. It's a little bit after 6:32. Again, Occoquan District Supervisor Kenny Boddye wanted to thank everyone for joining us for this digital gateway listening session. Give me 1 second here, and I will make sure that everyone can hear me, and we will get started. There we go. Okay. So, let's see. Okay, that works. Okay. So we're going to start with some welcomes. Our Planning Commissioner, Rob Perry, will be joining us hopefully very shortly. I'm just going to be admitting people as they join. This is a listening session. It's going to be recorded and it will be available on our YouTube channel. So if anyone has not seen or subscribed to the Occoquan District Supervisor YouTube channel, at the end of this presentation, or I should say this listening session, it'll be available there for your review. And we are recording, so please keep that in mind. If you have any questions, please type them out in the Zoom chat, and we will get to the appropriate staff members for county staff. Again, this is a listening session. There won't be a staff presentation. So if you have any questions about the project specifically, please use the chat feature in Zoom, and we will collect those, compile those, and get them off to county staff. That being said, everyone who signed up for this listening session through our sign up will and used a valid email address will get a copy of all the answers. My staff will be compiling a spreadsheet of all the questions. Once we get all the answers from county staff, we will be sending those answers to everyone through the email address they used for this event. As this is a listening session, again, like I said, there will be no staff presentation. However, Prince William County staff, the planning department, has set up an actually dedicated site for this project. You can reach it on the at the link that's on this slide. Department Planning Office, PW-Digital-Gateway. That'll take you straight to the project website. Finally, on this slide, as everyone probably well knows now, you can find out what's going on in the Occoquan District and sign up for our email updates on our website, which is www.occoquandistrict.net. A few final housekeeping items before we get started to the meat of this. Just wanted to reaffirm that this is a listening session that's geared towards residents of the Occoquan District. We ask that deference is given to those who are Occoquan District constituents. You know, everyone is free to be on this and listen in and type in their questions that we can get for staff. But we really want to make sure that folks respect the fact that this were Occoquan District residents and those folks who reside in our district get a chance to speak. Please use the raise hand feature so we know you wish to speak. If for a reason that feature is not working, please let us know in the chat so we can know that you wish to address us and we can get to you that way. And in the interest of receiving as much feedback as possible, we would ask that you please keep your comments short initially. I see that we don't have, you know, a huge magnitude of people on tonight, but to the interest of getting to everyone, we hope that you all will respect the fact that we do have people on here who wish to make their voices heard in this process. And I want to hear from everyone as much as possible. If, you know, we get through everyone who wishes to speak before the end, we're slated to end this at 8 o'clock, and folks have additional comments who spoke previously, we can allow folks a second turn to speak, but please keep in mind that we want to hear from as many folks as possible before the end of the night. And as always, you can ask questions and comments after tonight by sending your by email or by calling our office. My email address for our office is there, occoquan@pwcgov.org, and Rob Perry, our planning commissioner's email address is there as well, occoquanplanning@gmail.com. That being said, I will go to the grid now, as I do see Dr. Jack has raised his hand. Let's start with you, Dr. Jack.
Oh, good evening, Supervisor Boddye. Thank you very much. I'm president of the Lake Ridge Occoquan Coal Civic Association, and we have a a local pelt meeting tonight at 7:30, so I appreciate being able to comment. I just wanted some thoughts on the digital gateway issue and our national parks as we try to struggle with what to do for the appropriate land use around the Manassas National Battlefield Park and the Prince William Forest Park. And what really has bothered me is that what we do, we have had a lot of discussion locally about potential uses and say data centers near the park and data centers on Pageland Lane, etc. But we haven't had a two-way conversation with some leadership in the national park venue. And I think we need to identify those leaders in the National Park Service and in those other organizations that are fundamental to preserving the park experience. And the reason I bring that up is because when we formed, for instance, the Prince William Forest Park, one of the motivations to have that park was actually explicitly stated back in the early 1918, 1920-ish timeframe, was to have woods and wilderness experience for inner city youth. And in fact, the 15,000 acres that was acquired to create the Prince William Forest Park, that was a primary purpose to have that experience. And in fact, they were quite successful in doing that. And so I think we need to understand too how we can enhance that experience, not only for of the park being there, but on the boundaries, how to be respectful to put in uses that are respectful to the park. Now, and one of the, I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and I think to reach out to some decision makers in the Park Service, but also in organizations that promote the enhancement experience in the park. One of them is the National Parks Conservation Association. And I think, for instance, I do get the magazine, I read it. I love a lot of the material there. And I just want to say the president of the National Parks Conservation Association is Teresa Pierno. And I think we need to be reaching out to someone like her. The chairman of the board of trustees is a fellow by the name of Victor H. Fazio, and he's in Arlington, Virginia. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we need to reach out. And there are a number of members in the Virginia area, like Donald Ayer. He's in McLean, Virginia. He's on the board. There are a lot of people that could help us communicate about the parks and how to be respectful about the boundaries. I know that one of the goals for the Prince William Forest Park, when they acquired the 15,000 acres, was to protect Quantico Creek as a watershed. And in fact, in those days, the land acquisitions, they acquired 80% of the watershed in Quantico Creek. So it is, in fact, the benchmark for water quality in the entire Northern Virginia area. We should be proud of that. And we shouldn't be doing things that would decrease that experience. Another thing is looking at the goals for bringing inner city youth there. We do not have a northern entrance, say near the Independent Hill area. And of course, we've had this whole drama about putting a data center right next to the park boundaries, which invites issues about invasive species and all of that too. But think about if we could have meaningful communication with decision makers in the Park Service and the National Park Conservation Association and other groups to figure out how to get more usage for youth and the original goal of inner city youth too, of bringing people in and having a northern entrance there in the Independent Hill area. That would be amazing. It would be amazing because we have the road system there and we have the ability to improve utilization of a treasure right here in Prince William County. So I don't want to hog the program, I want to thank you for letting me speak. And those are just some initial thoughts. And again, on the Pageland Lane, I do want to say there is a view shed and vista that is so dramatic if you were to picture yourself being there during the Civil War and looking at the park area, that is part of the experience of the park. And if we develop the Pageland Lane area too aggressively, we're going to maybe diminish that value. So we do need to engage with other parties that are there to help everyone enhance that experience. I see local government and state government should be partnering with the federal government to figure this out, to enhance all of these experiences for future generations. We have a tremendous gems in Prince William County. We need to figure out how do we do this for the best interest of all parties. So I'll leave it at that. I thank you. I know the dialogue will be intense and emotional and all of that, but here we sit in the eastern end, and the fact that we have these treasures, whether we go there every day or not, it is a blessing, and we need to, I think, to enhance it, enhance that experience for all, and to keep in mind those original goals, why we acquired the Prince William Forest Park in the first place. My goodness, we have the Civilian Conservation Corps built the cabins, all of those things. I attended a wedding reception there in the woods. It was beautiful. Although when it gets dark, it's really dark in the park. It's quite an experience. No, thank you so much, Supervisor Boddye. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dr. Jack, for your comments. Always great hearing from you. Glad you were able to jump in on this ahead of the local PELT meeting. And please feel free to share this with the local PELT members when you come on there.
Okay, thank you. And we have 4 projects tonight. If anybody wants to jump on for that, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Dr. Jack. I see there have been some comments and questions coming through the chat. Thank you, Nicole Wilberg, for your comment about the superintendent of Prince William Forest Park. I know that they were at Supervisor Bailey's listening session, so they have weighed in. We also know that the superintendent of the Manassas Battlefield Park has also weighed in on this case. So that's been well documented as well. Let's see. I'm going to look through now. I also see a couple of questions in regards to the tax rate for business personal property taxes. I would imagine specifically as it addresses the data center industry. We are addressing that. We will compile that question as well and get an answer for you as well. There are a few other comments about the park. Carl Gretchen, you just asked a question, what my stance is. Right now, the straightforward answer I can give you is I'm still compiling information. I was going to address that a little bit later near the ending, but since you asked it, I appreciate that question. As everyone is probably well aware, staff is still right now in the process of compiling everything for this project. For those that aren't aware of where we are in terms of where we stand with this, basically staff is going through their usual analysis when it comes to a comprehensive plan amendment. Right now, they are asking the planning department's asking other county agencies what their comments are. I know folks have been talking about what the stormwater management department has been talking about as well. They've also been soliciting comment to our neighboring jurisdictions, especially Fairfax and Loudoun, which aren't too far away from this project site. So right now, my stance is I want to hear from you. I want to hear from everyone that's been involved in this conversation thus far. And I also want to hear from our experts and county staff about what they think on this before I have an official position on this project. So thank you for that. Carl, I believe that was. Okay, I'm looking through the folks on here. Please raise your hand if you have a question. If you please raise your hand if you'd like to share your comments, concerns. I'm looking through everyone on the Zoom to see if there are any hands raised. Nancy, okay, I see you, Miss Armour. I know you've talked at our board meetings before, so it's good to see you on here. You can, I will ask to unmute you, and you can speak.
Okay. Trying to get my video to work. How are you tonight?
Not too bad. How about yourself? And I can see you.
I'm a little bit under the weather, but I'm so glad you set this up for us tonight. I appreciate that. I'm still at the point, I think, where many people are, where we still have a lot more questions than comments. I think my greatest fear is the dialogue, and I think Jack's comments were great. I've never been this closely involved in a decision this large by the county, and I'm learning, as are many other people, about how this works. But from what I've seen so far, just as your session here today, there's a lot of really good listening sessions, and these comments that come up from the folks are really incredible and really important. And I don't know when the two-way dialogue starts. And I'm worried that the two-way dialogue is the public hearing for the proposal, and that I think is too late for the questions and concerns to be addressed. So I have a bunch of questions still, but I'll start with my comments, since that's what we're trying to do today. And I'm not a real quick typer, so what I'll do is I'll just send the questions, if you don't mind, to your staff email, and you can address them as you see fit. So just in general, I believe that the data centers that we have should be sent to the data center overlay area. And I don't understand why that's not happening. I really just don't understand it. I don't get it. So I don't understand why we've approved several data centers outside of the area. And I don't know if it's too late for the one over there at Independent Hill to be reconsidered. I don't understand. Is Mr. Perry on the line yet?
We'll check quickly, but I have not seen him pop on
Okay.
yet.
So again, I don't understand, again, from a process perspective, the latest approval for the Gainesville data center on the corner of Catharpin and John Marshall Highway, where there was a tie vote from the Planning Commission, and by default that goes, I guess, to the board. And for the Planning Commission to say in their response, we don't know how the power is going to work out, but I'm sure the citizens will figure it out. I mean, that's just irresponsible. And as a supervisor and a representative to us, I feel the supervisor should push back to the Planning Commission, say, hey, it's your job to figure this all out before it comes to us to a vote. So I don't know if that's an option, but I thought that was pretty irresponsible. And again, why was it approved? I feel like there should be a more diligent and thoughtful response and reasoning why the applicant can't go in the data center overlay district. They may have some very valid reasons why they can't develop there, but I don't know if anyone's even asking that question. It seems like, well, this guy's bought the land and now he's going to ask for the rezoning, and I don't understand that part. So again, I don't know if it's just my lack of ignorance on this whole thing, or if there's some wonderful reason why that happens. Let's see what else I got here. Regarding specifically the Prince William Digital Gateway, the acting planning commissioner said there are going to be a lot more public meetings. So I'm just curious, when are those going to be held? I did speak to Mr. Barrett in the planning office. Great guy, gave me a lot of good information, very helpful. And basically what he told me was they're working still on all the comments, because that was my questions, was there have been all these great comments, how and when will we see those addressed? Because maybe they'll all be addressed and we can all understand and rally behind this proposal. And he said basically they need more staff, and they're working on figuring out how they're going to gather all the comments and address them. And he did say there wouldn't be a follow-on meeting until they had more information to share with the public, which makes sense because at this point, they're just going to get more and more questions. So that all sounded good. And then I said, well, your timeline still shows this like ready to go in March. And he said, oh, yeah, I don't know that we're going to be ready. And the initial timeline is really just put together before we have a lot of background in it. So I asked him, I said, why don't you update the timeline so you give us a little bit more comfort that this isn't going to happen in 30 days. So again, I think that's where people such as me get a little worried, because it's like there's no new stuff on the website. The calendar still shows the same thing. None of the questions have been addressed. So are we still on a steamroll to get this happening, or where are we at? So just overall comment, I feel like we need more increased communication and transparency, because even if there's an update, and I said to him, I was like, even if you just put on there, hey, we're working on it, this is what we're trying to do, at least that way we know where we're all at, not just where we think we're at. He did say that they had posted the video and the audio transcripts on the website just as a quick way to let people know what was transpiring. So that was kind of their attempt, the county's attempt to keep the communication going on it. So that's kind of, again, my feedback would be these listening sessions are great. Going to the board meetings are great. Probably not for you guys because it makes them longer. And it's great. We feel encouraged to be able to speak up. And I guess we're just looking for more two-way dialogue from the county as well as the other folks in this. Then I just had some other questions, and I can just throw these in the email. I know there's a data center overlay meeting next week. So specific questions to that is, when will the analysis of the overlay availability be completed? And there seem to be a handful of pending applications in the works for approvals that are outside the overlay. I think there might be one in the overlay district. So again, kind of why aren't people going to the overlay district? And if we can tackle that as a county, that might alleviate some of the issues. The other thing is the tax revenue. If we charge more of a market rate, I think I saw this a minute ago, how can that help us close the gap so we're not so energized to take new land for data centers? I know we don't charge what some of the other counties charge for data centers. If we got closer to Loudoun County's rate, how could that help us close the gap and remain competitive? That would be an interesting number to see. Again, having spent time in the data center industry, we didn't have a different price if you were in my data center in Prince William or if you're in my data center in Loudoun County. So they're charging the same rate to the end user. So that difference between what they have to pay in Loudoun and what they have to pay here, that's going right to their pocket, not your pocket and not my pocket. So that should be something that we take a look at as well, I think, as a county. Let's see what else I got here. So we've got also the Loudoun County folks have kind of re-looked at this area. They've actually kind of re-looked at Route 7 too. So I've been following them closely. And I heard you say that you were, or the county's looking to both Fairfax and Loudoun County for some feedback. I know Fairfax County sent some response today about their concerns about the Prince William Digital Gateway project specifically. So we'd like to see how that's taken into account as we move forward with trying to figure out what's the best thing for our county. And then, thank you for not cutting me off. Then the last question, comment, feedback is just how can we in our district specifically get the word out about this? And not just this specific issue, but just the CPA overall. Obviously, our area, the county, is very much developed compared to the rest of the county. And that was by design back in the day. And, you know, as like you, we live here, and every time we turn around on a corner, something else is getting built on our side of the county. And I think some of the folks here feel like the rest of the county needs to carry their weight. And so I would just implore you to increase your communication about the overall future land development of the county. I see lots of good information from you on your activities to the trails and parks and environmental issues. And this is probably the most single important environmental issue we have in front of us. And I don't see much from you about this specific topic. So just some feedback there that you might not be hearing from anybody about this in your district, but I also don't feel, other than this specific thing, that maybe you could shed more light on it so that you could really understand how your constituents feel about this particular topic. Thank you.
Sure. No, thank you for your commentary, Ms. Armour. I know we've had a couple conversations about this, and my staff and I are listening. As we discussed, we are communicating more about this issue. Part of the reason why we've been having this listening session is because some of the feedback that you gave me in regards to getting out there more with this, and the fact of the matter is that, like I said before, I don't have a stance on this yet, so I'm still compiling information. But to your point, we can definitely be doing a better job of communicating what's going on, where we are in the process, and that my staff and I have taken that to heart, which is part of the reason why we're here tonight. So I appreciate that. One thing I did want to address in your comments was the Independent Hill data center. That has not been approved. So I'm not sure if there was just sort of a misunderstanding there from some of the folks that talked to you about it. But all that has happened thus far is we approved the Independent Hill Small Area Plan of last year, or pretty early last year. And one of the designations that were changed there was that area that's right across the street from the landfill, which includes the section just north of Prince William Forest Park. And in the land use categories that we replanted it to includes data center as a possible use. And I know that a data center developer has submitted an application for it, but to go back to the answer, there has been no approval for that data center as of yet either, and it's still going through the planning process.
Great, because I think that's the one that both Quantico and the Prince William Forest, those folks chimed in on their opinions about that as well. So
right. And Dr. Jack sort of alluded to that as well in his comments. So yeah, understood. We're not there yet, but that is definitely on my radar as well.
Yeah. And again, from our area, I know you're doing a great job with and not to get off our favorite topic, but the work on 123 and Old Bridge. So those are certainly important issues. And I think the other exciting project that people, as much as there's excitement about Whole Foods coming around the corner, oh my God, building an underpass and overpass, that's going to get some people excited. So that's all I got. Thank you, sir.
Well, yeah, thank you again. And yeah, please send your questions over to myself and my staff. We're more than happy to help get them to the right people so we can get you some of the answers that you've been looking for.
Oh, and just one final thing. We have a lot of experts and a lot of opinions. And if there's any way that I can help gather folks to do any type of, and I hate to use the word town hall, but if any type of presentations or discussions or whatever you would want to call them to the folks over here in your district, I'd be glad to help organize any type of presentation like that for the folks on this side. Be glad to help you with that.
Understood. I appreciate the offer. We'll definitely keep that in mind.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Armour.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Let's see. I'm looking through any Occoquan district resident who wants to make comments. Please raise your hand. Yeah, Angela Hens, I agree. We don't get enough taxes from the data centers. As most folks on here probably are aware, I've been one of the folks that's been a pretty big supporter of increasing it. Right now, we have a schedule that the board passed last year that puts us increasing it incrementally over the next few years. I think that we should continue to do that. And frankly, I'm one of the folks that believe that we should be more aggressive with that. But I completely understand, Angela, Ms. Hens, you're correct. Let's see, any other Occoquan district residents would like to raise their hands and make comments to the group? I'm looking through everyone on screen here.
I would, but I can't do it.
Miss Lauren, I can hear you. If you can't raise your hand, I can definitely hear you though. So go for it.
Can't see me though. Yes, I would like to speak.
Go for it.
Okay, this QTS that wants to buy this property on Pageland, as I expect you already know, is owned by Blackstone, which is a private equity company. And we all know what private equity companies are known for. And so because of that, just that alone makes me very, very, very nervous, because I don't trust those people. And especially since, as I've expressed to you, my very great concern is water and precious water and the watershed. And because I have a well, and because of all of the other reasons that have been that I've, read about the previous Occoquan reservoir and all that has gone into getting that, that must be an awful lot of consideration has to be given to that. So we just can't be letting people, especially real estate people, who probably can come in here, and we heard the lady, I heard the lady for the first time on the news from yesterday when we were out protesting. And so naturally she is anxious to make her great commission. But we really, really, really must find places for these data centers in the overlay that's already been designated. And even up here on the Parkway, perhaps we should consider that. Maybe that wouldn't be so bad. It wouldn't give us so many cars. But I certainly don't want to see it in the rural crescent. And again, I sent you a message already about whether we're not paying enough, and they're not paying enough. We're not charging them enough compared to Loudon. And I was looking at Loudon's budget, and they are going to bring down their rate to $4.15 next year. I'm sorry, in their budget, but. Anyway, I guess that's all I want to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lauren, and thank you for your engagement on this. I appreciate your comments. To go back to the paying the taxes issues that you ended with, again, like Ms. Hen said in the chat, I agree with you. There's a huge delta between where our current computer and peripherals tax is for data centers versus Loudon's. Even if they lower theirs, what like they're doing, we raise ours substantially, we're still pretty far apart there. So I agree with that. I know it was something that some of the members of the previous board were interested in. I'm certainly interested in. I know I have two colleagues who are interested in getting it at a much more aggressive rate. We will continue to fight for that because I agree with you 100%. That said, Ms. Lauren, thank you for the rest of your comments. QTS, yeah, you're correct. They have been identified as the folks who are part of this, and we will continue to be scrutinous when it comes to them as well. Let's see. Looking for more Occoquan district folks that would like to comment. I see that Martin Jeter from Midco joined us. He's also an Occoquan district resident. So if he wants to comment, he can raise his hand as well. Kim Hosen, who's also an Occoquan district resident. I saw her talking in the chat earlier as well. Let's see. Since I'm not seeing any hands. I know that, oh yeah, I was gonna get to you, Nicole. That's what I was about to say. Nicole Wilberg is not an Occoquan district resident, but right now there's no current Occoquan district residents have their hands raised. So go ahead and unmute yourself, Nicole, and feel free to give us your comments.
Thank you, and thank you for listening to me, even though I'm a neighbor to Occoquan. There's a lot I could start with. I oppose the data centers for the harm they do to the environment. And Pageland building outside of the overlay. I oppose the one at Independence Hill. I oppose the Bi-County Parkway, which is now not just being slipped into Pageland, but flat out requested to be part of the comprehensive plan, as the Prince William Times reported today. So I'm asking you, please, 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 please oppose that, because that's going to put a beltway in my backyard. But I'm going to take all that and I'm going to just set it to the side and appeal to you as the Occoquan district supervisor. You are the guardian of all of our water. You're the guardian of the Occoquan reservoir. And these data centers everywhere, especially in the Occoquan watershed, are such a threat to our water, because not just because of the water they use, but because we're getting rid of so much permeable land and paving it over, which means all that rain, instead of being absorbed into the ground and filtered through the streams, Little Bull Run, down to the Occoquan, instead just run over all the parking lots and the data centers, and they just carry sediment and oil and pollutants right into the reservoir. And I'm really concerned about the quality of all our drinking water. And you're the guy who protects our reservoir. So we need you to stop this, because that water is for all of us. And it affects me, even though I'm not in your district, but I'm counting on you to protect it. And also that, you're kind of like, I don't want to call you the green space guy, but you're always posting pictures of parks and trails, and I really appreciate how much you promote the green spaces in our counties. And then this digital gateway outside of the zone, the huge industry coming to Nokesville, the Independence Hill right by the Forest Data Center, it seems inconsistent with your messaging. And that I really like how much you help us protect our green spaces. And I just hope you'll keep doing that and not support all this industrial development everywhere that really takes away from our precious green spaces, but also runs the risk of contaminating all that water in the reservoir. So I just want to let you know where I stand, and I hope you'll listen and take it into consideration.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Nicole. Thank you so much for your comments. And you're right. I do share the Occoquan Reservoir with the Brentsville and Coles districts, but a big chunk of the reservoir proper flows from Occoquan all the way down to the Potomac. So it hugs the backbone of our district here in Occoquan district. So you're absolutely right. And that's why when it comes to these issues of conservation, environmental quality, and all the things that you discussed, I don't look at it in just terms of just the rural area, but that entire mid-county area too, that goes from, Yates Ward all the way down to where some of our friends at Midco live, through the Hoadley corridor as well. Because to your point, the entire watershed is affected by what happens not just up in the far western part of the county, but as you mentioned, Quantico Creek, other parts of the mid-county area. So I'm definitely looking at that 360 view. So I appreciate your comments there, Nicole. And in terms of the Bi-County Parkway, the final part I'll explain on that. I will tell you that the new mobility map that was put out that includes the Bi-County Parkway on it, you saw it the same time we did. We were sitting in that board meeting and one of the speakers showed the map to us. It had been released basically a couple of days beforehand. So, again, that's what staff has come up with. We have some time to talk through if that's really the direction we want to go and the impacts, like you said. I know that you all in the Montclair 234 area have had concerns about that for decades. It has not been a new fight. And I know that would have far-reaching effects on the traffic going through your section of the county too, not just up in Pageland, not just over here in the Occoquan district. So that definitely is on my heart and on my mind as we go through that.
Thank you. Yes, I don't know if you've seen the Prince William Times article that came out today that said Chair Ann Wheeler and Pete Canlon had requested of the Planning Commission to put it back in the comprehensive plan. So I'm hoping you'll have some discussions with Chair Ann Wheeler. I can send you that article if you like, but I think maybe she doesn't quite understand how residents in our area have been fighting it for 40 years. And I haven't been here for the full 40 years, but I'm already tired. And we'd like to not have the Beltway.
I get it. No, I appreciate that. I saw the article. I didn't get a chance to read it since I was going between preparing for this, and the board meeting agenda for next Tuesday just came out. So I was looking through that and the budget, but please feel free to send it to me. I will read it and see what's going on. But yeah, such a large, far-reaching project. We will definitely have a lot of discussions about it before it gets anywhere near an approval or even a public hearing. You have my word on that, Nicole.
Thank you.
Let's see. Looking to see if there are any other folks from the Occoquan district that have their hands raised. I see that Carl in the chat just sort of had a clarification that Pete Canlin said that he didn't really request it. But that's I'll have to look at that article to see just how it quotes him.
If you didn't, great. That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm open to hearing more about it.
Yeah, no, me too. Colleen Pimentel, I see you have your hand raised. Please unmute yourself. You're free to comment.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me first?
Yes, I can. Go for it.
Yes, thank you for picking me. I am also in the Potomac district, and I do know Nicole personally, but in relation to this, I also, and I have spoken at this 2 virtual meetings, I am opposed to the Pageland project for the reasons that everybody stated. I do think it is a bunch of smoke and mirrors, and it's very flashy. And I don't think that the board is, and I don't mean this insulting, but it's my honest feeling. I don't think the board is looking at this with a very, very perspective glance. I think it's looking at it as in what money can come in and very quick. It's very shiny, as I've stated before. And there are a lot of environmental issues with this. You know, we as a county, I know people make a joke like, oh, well, we're not just going to be a bunch of farms. And that's not the thing, but there's nothing wrong with having some farms, but not wanting everything in your county where you live to be multifamily unit housing, like on the eastern side, and just building and destroying trees all over the place, and just putting in more industrial stuff. It definitely changes the whole look and feel. And as for the Bi-County Parkway, I'm just very confused as to why we need this. You know, if you live out in the Montclair area, you aren't going to be looking at a job in Loudoun. I know I just took a new job, and some of the places that I could have worked would have been in DC or Herndon. And I said no, you know, flat out. So it did take a little bit longer because that just was not the quality of life that my family and I want. So I understand. And, you know, there would have been some great opportunities, but those just were not in the cards for me. So I just want to see why this is even an option. And one other question, and why is it that the Democrats are for Pageland, but the Republicans aren't? And I say that as somebody who identifies as a pretty strong Democrat, but I can say that I could be swayed with something along this line. I just don't understand why it seems to be such a partisan issue with the board. And that's it. I'll unmute myself now, or I'll mute myself.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Pimentel. No, I know you retread a few of the comments that Nicole made. I hear you loud and clear. I know that there are a lot of things that we have to look at in terms of all these issues, whether it's the Bi-County Parkway, the potential to the environment, and you're right. A lot of the appeal that is being sold to us as a county, whether it be us as the board or to the planning commission or whoever is going to be listening to this issue is the potential tax dollars. As everyone knows, the data center industry is one of the fastest growing industries in the country, particularly here in Northern Virginia, as we are sort of data center ally between us and Loudoun. So there are a lot of folks out there that feel that on the board as well, that feel that there is an opportunity to tackle some of our long-standing projects and goals with it. But, you know, again, we always have to weigh the benefit versus the risk, right? A lot of people on here already, including yourself, have highlighted some of the potential shortfalls here, the potential environmental damage that this gateway and other data center projects can cause. So to me, that's where I am right now. I'm trying to weigh, you know, the risk versus reward. And this is part of the reason why I'm talking to everyone and getting your feedback, because I'm not convinced as of right now where we should be going in terms of this project. So I appreciate your comments. Let's see. I see, Lisa, your hand is up, but just let me make sure there aren't any other Occoquan district people, because I know, Lisa, you're in Potomac as well. So give me 1 second here. All right, Lisa, you're free to go. There's currently the Occoquan district residents with their hands raised.
All right, thanks. Yep, I am definitely a neighbor. I don't live in Occoquan, but we're all one county, and so I am concerned about our entire county. You know, some folks have said this side of the county is one of the places where, you know, we're seeing construction all over the place. I have developments next door that are affecting the paths that I walk. There's construction, you know, the developments, you know, probably 10 developments within a 5-mile area with it, you know, from where I live, that are coming up. So they're coming up all over the place. And I'm not saying that we should impact the western side of the county the same way, but I'm just wondering if there's just a lack of imagination in terms of what can be done in this county to increase the tax revenue. Why is it data centers? You know, there's, I know Loudoun County has huge data centers. There is a lot of tax money that's coming out of there, but they also have, you know, one of the biggest promoters of wineries, and you know, there's just so many other activities that are going on in Loudoun County in in the western side, and we don't promote that. You go down to Charlottesville, you know, it's one of the richest counties or richest cities in Virginia, and they have other, you know, forms of a tax base. Why does it have to be, you know, data centers? You know, has there really been a study done on the impact of paving such large areas of land? You know, has there been a study on that in terms of how it's going to affect the water quality and how it's going to affect wildlife and you know, the environment? So I really, before anybody makes a final decision on this, those are issues that have to be addressed. And I think there's sort of a tendency just to overlook all of that and see the issue that is going to increase our tax base, which is important, you know, because we all want better schools. We all want, that's the most important thing is, you know, we want better schools, we want better transportation and all that, but how do we achieve that? And so I think there has to be a more creative way of approaching that than just, you know, allowing data centers to just pave acres and acres and acres of land. So that's my.
Thank you, Lisa, for your comments. Again, I hear you. You're right. Whenever we're talking about any development, whether it's data centers in this case or anything else, we do have to look at those impacts and how it impacts the wildlife, but also the existing neighborhoods and communities around them. So I hear you 100%. Let's see. There are a couple discussions going on in the chat, but I am keeping an eye on those as I look through to see if there are any other folks that would like to speak right now. It looks like it's just Lisa and Colleen who still have their hands up, but I figure that's just from their previous comments. Miss Arbor, I know you had quite a few comments. Oh, actually, there's a couple of people. I know you, in the interest of time and deferring to other people, I know you were curtailed some of your comments. So if you'd like to speak again, I think this is now the time for you.
Great. I appreciate that. Actually, another question came to mind. Am I centered better with my screen this time?
Yes, we can see more than just a corner of your face this time around.
I had some feedback from the peanut gallery. This is sort of on topic, but sort of not. Another tricky question. I was watching the video about the comprehensive plan 2040, and I think the first sentence pretty much from Rebecca's video was, we are expecting 100,000 more people to come to this county, so we need to build more houses. So I thought about that and I said, well, I mean, this is a great place to live and I don't want to deprive anybody of that. But why do we have to have 100,000 more people here? Like, who decides that, just in general for our county? That, because it's kind of a catch-22, right? If you build the houses, you're going to get the 100,000 people. And at what point did somebody study it to say, okay, 100,000 more people is going to cost us X in schools, libraries, roads, et cetera, et cetera. So again, just high level, I don't know where that number came from or how people come up with those types of numbers, and who decides if we want 100,000 more people in our county. I don't know if you can shed any light on that, but that's my current thing bouncing around in my brain.
Sure. So even though that's not completely germane to what we're talking about, I will talk about that a little bit. To your question, Miss Armour, I know that the Metropolitan Council of Governments actually does do population projections based on the trends and where the trajectory is going in terms of population growth. When birth rates, you talk about increases in employment, you talk about how population trends tend to go from urban cores and start to go outward over time. They did project quite accurately about 30 years ago that we would be at about 470, 480 thousand people in this county 20, 30 years ago. They were right on, even given some of the different land use changes that were made back then and over the years. So I don't think it's a question of can we make choices to stop people from coming? To me, it's always been a question of how we accommodate that growth properly, where we're channeling that growth so it makes the most sense and make sure that folks that do move here have access to quality amenities and are able to get to transportation and things of that nature. So but to your point, we do need to be smart with how we do that. And we need to be mindful, like I said before, of existing communities. So I hear you there. Kim Hosen, you have your hand up. You are free to unmute yourself and give us your comments.
Thank you. I first want to just make some comments about the rural crescent, of which there's lots of concern right now, especially with the proposed industrial corridor running through the middle of it. The idea, and also to address comments from people in the East who are complaining because there's not enough green open space over here and things feel too crowded and dense. And there certainly is lots of room for improvement in green open space. But the main idea with the rural crescent was to give the county a tool, an effective tool to better manage sprawl development. The idea was to be able to maintain a countryside where a few people lived, which would allow us to direct our dollars to underserved areas in the East. And look what we have in the rural crescent. We have 40 miles of scenic byways, wineries, breweries, small farms, unique uses such as a very successful hydroponic farm, and it guarantees our housing diversity. What a deal. I think that's something that needs to be protected for the county and is to our advantage. And then I'd just like to make a comment about Prince William Forest Park, which protects 14,000 acres of forests. It protects the transition from the coastal plain to the Piedmont and is hugely important from a scientific point of view. We are so fortunate to have that. And now we have a data center proposed to be rezoned inside the legislative boundaries of the Prince William Forest Park. It's supposed to be 40 acres. The rezoning turned out to be 51 acres, which I'm not sure how that could have happened. And it's right up at, and the whole parcel that started off was 160 acres. So my guess is if the applicant gets permission to build a data center on the 51 acres, the rest of that 160 acres is going to be up for data centers next. And as I said, it's within the congressional boundary of the Forest Park, which will give you some idea of how important it is. It's also right on top of the headwaters of Quantico Creek, which is one of the nicest creeks in Northern Virginia. It is also the backbone of Prince William Forest Park. That clean water supply in that healthy creek creates high quality habitat that houses endangered animals and endangered plants and a host of other wildlife. You can see that everybody really loves it. Back when the pandemic was first hit and the park was closed, people parked all down the street and walked into it. It is hugely loved and hugely important, and a terrible place for a data center, especially when right across the street on the other side of 234 is a data center overlay, and there is a junkyard just waiting to be redeveloped. If the data center went over there, we would all come cut that ribbon with you, that's for sure, and say hooray. But to do something that damages Prince William Forest Park is really unconscionable and not good for the county. I mean, at the base, the recreational uses at the park generate about $25 million a year in local economic output. And I could just go on all night about the benefits of the Forest Park. So I certainly hope that fails and the county sends a message that we value our assets and we understand how to use them. And by the way, just skipping back to the Rural Crescent, the comprehensive plan has a list of incentives that were recommended to ensure the health and well-being of the Rural Crescent, none of which have been implemented. Then the Rural Preservation Study expanded that list, and that was, I think, in 2016, and nothing's been implemented yet. So before we do away with something, I think that we should look at it as a whole and make some effort, as we said in the beginning here, to try to see how well it works for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim, for your comments as always, and I appreciate your advocacy and your insights.
Thank you. And now I'm saying goodbye. I'm off to Locapelt.
Okay. Well, good luck. See you at Locapelt, maybe.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. All right. So I see your comment, Martin. I'll get to you here in a second. It looks like Mr. John Crown beaches the punch. So Mr. Crown, you can speak when you're able to.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. I just want to, I've been in IT for a long time. I just want to dispel some of the myths that are going on. As far as like the data centers, I mean, they're not so bad because the watershed, these data centers, if you start to look at what they're doing, maybe not the last generation of data centers, but the new generation of data centers, the one that they're talking about for Pageland, they're making a significant effort to be, carbon neutral and green, to deal with the watershed, to deal with, the water system, the water problem with their closed loop. And so that area that they're trying to put it into Pageland, is already cleared farmland. And they said they were going to cap like 200 wells. So, I mean, if you think about the water it's actually a water savings if you look at the numbers with the data centers being in there. So I'm just saying there's a lot of things that are going on more recently. I just want to make sure that, Supervisor, that you're looking at the newer technology that is being offered for these data centers versus the last generation that has been kind of an eyesore and problems in Phoenix and those things. Those are all old generation data centers. The ones that are going in now, I think are going to be carbon neutral and green. And they're trying really hard to make sure that that happens, because what happens is a lot of businesses coming into Prince William County, they don't have to have data centers in their businesses anymore. They're going to go ahead and send their computers over to the cloud, and the cloud is going to be green. It's going to have, you know, carbon neutral, and they're planting trees, and, you know, they're doing all of these efforts to make sure that, you know, they're going to stay green. So I think that will attract businesses into Prince William County as well. And so that's all I wanted to say, is that we need to look at what the data centers have to offer as far as what they're trying to do for the environment for going forward. It's actually a net positive if you actually look at it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Crown. Mr. Jeter, I know you said you were going to raise your hand. You have the floor, sir.
Thanks, Kenny, and thanks for holding this meeting and getting feedback from your constituents on this particular application for the digital gateway. But I just wanted, before I talk a little bit about that, I wanted to touch on something that Kim brought up just a minute ago, and kind of piggyback on her comments on the proposed data center for the area in Independent Hill there, right next to Prince William Forest Park. I agree with most everything Kim said. I think this is a great opportunity for us in Mid-County to try to get another north entrance to Prince William Forest Park, protect the African-American history that's there with the Barnes family land that we have verified in a Midco meeting last summer, that through the county archaeologist, that land or county historian, I should say, that land was actually owned by the Barnes family, who were slaves who after the Civil War came back and actually farmed that land. So their house was in the way of Route 234 when it was widened, and they moved that to Montclair Library to keep it and prevent it from being destroyed, which was a good thing. But it would be nice to move it back. I know that would be so to speak, heavy lift to get that back on actually Barnes family land. But in any case, being that close to Prince William Forest Park, being in the rural crescent, and also, being on that historical land, it would be, I think it would be a real shame to build a data center on that property. But, more to the subject we're discussing tonight, the digital gateway, and basically data centers outside the overlay, I would just say it'd probably be a good idea to kind of take a step back from these. I know the data center craze has kind of taken over Prince William County and Loudoun County and other counties now. It's kind of a cash cow. It's seen as a cash cow anyway, but it might be a good idea to take a step back and look at, there's a lot of data centers coming online in the next couple of years that are already in the process of being built. Might be a good idea to wait to see what the technology shakes out in the next few years, to see what we see as far as the future of data centers and so forth before we commit to a whole lot more of them. I would definitely recommend raising the tax on data centers in Prince William County to come somewhat closer to what they have in Loudoun County. I know Supervisor Boddye knows, and most people in this meeting know, that the data center tax in Prince William is less than 25%, I think, of what it's kind of complicated because there's data center tax on whatever the peripherals tax is, but there's also the tax on the actual land that the data center is on. So the combination of those two kind of, it's a little bit different in Loudoun County, Prince William County, but all total, Prince William County is still charging way less tax on data centers than Loudoun is. So, it could kind of satisfy most folks, because I know we hear a lot of folks saying we need this tax money for schools and for other purposes in Prince William County, but we could get that, at least some of that money, from raising the data center tax. And I certainly think that would be a better strategy than a meals tax, for example, that I know that the board is considering right now. A meals tax to me is very regressive. It would hit the lowest income folks the hardest. And, I think it would be really a better strategy to, tax the data centers. I don't think you'll scare them away if you raise the tax even, somewhat close to what Loudoun County has. The data centers are not going to run away to some other county. They're still going to try to come to Prince William County. So anyway, don't want to go on and on. I just think that maybe we need to take a step back, build within the overlay for right now, see how everything shakes out technology wise and so forth in another 5, 6, 7 years. And then we can look at what else we might need to do. But definitely raise the data center tax more than just a nickel or a dime or a quarter and get that somewhere close to Loudoun County. But thanks again, Supervisor Boddye, for having us and listening to everybody, and appreciate it. And I too am going to the local help meeting now. So good night all.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments as always, Martin. Good to hear from you. Appreciate your leadership with Midco. To touch on the taxes issue a little bit again, I know we discussed it earlier. I do believe in the General Assembly, there's a couple of bills that have been filed. I have to go check the status of those because I'm not sure where they stand right now, but it's to address some of those disparities between just even how certain counties tax and are able to assess taxes on data centers. Because you're right, we like I said before, there is a large delta, and like you said, there's a large delta between where we're taxing them versus Loudoun. I've been told by our finance department there is a little bit of apples to oranges there, but we've been getting closer to how they do it. They've been getting closer to how we do it. But a little bit of guidance from the General Assembly on how we all get on the same apples to apples, oranges to oranges basis would help us see the true difference there. But again, overall, generally, like I said before, I agree with you. I believe we should be they should be paying their fair share. I've said so at board meetings. I've agreed with some of my colleagues across the aisle on that as well. So, as long as I'm around, we'll be continuing to fight to get closer to that. And continue to make sure that at some point they will be paying their fair share and will be reliant on more of their taxes and less on some of the other issues. No, you mentioned the meals tax. All I'll say about that is we're at the beginning of budget season. We still have an opportunity to work through that and see if it's something that we want to keep or if we want to take out of the budget. But again, Martin, I appreciate your comments. Let's see. Looking through the different Zoom windows to see if I see any other hands. Folks, we have another 20 minutes, so if you want to raise your hand and talk, you definitely can have the floor. There's not a lot of people jumping in. Angela Hens, you asked how much of the taxes from data centers goes towards school. That is subject to the normal revenue sharing agreement. So 57.25%, 23% go to the schools, just like everything else that goes to the general fund. Okay, I'm not seeing any more hands. So I'm going to go back for a third round for anyone that spoke a second time. Looking through. I see some chat folks going back and forth about taxes a little bit. Necessity for taxes for schools, a few other things. And yeah, no, I appreciate some of the comments about the difference in tax rate and how we do this. One of the questions we will be hoping to get an answer back, since it is being talked about right now from our finance folks, is if they can sort of dig in a little bit more into that nuance between the differences about how we tax data centers versus other counties, specifically Loudoun. So we will be able to try to get that from you all. Ms. Armour, I see that you had some comments in there and you raised your hand again. Again, not a lot of people are taking it, so go for it.
Sorry. Hopefully my video is more aligned.
Yep.
Another question for you. I know we have another senior member joining the county staff. I think she's the environmental and sustainability officer.
Yep.
Can you talk more about what her role will be and how she will come to play with these topics?
Sure. So that's a great question.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt if you had something else to ask. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, Miss Julia Mano will be joining us next month. She will be our Chief Sustainability Officer, and will be heading up our new Office of Sustainability. For folks who don't know, last year the board, at the passage of our fiscal year 22 budget, authorized the funds necessary to start the county's first Office of Sustainability. Along with that is a lead sustainability officer. Took us a little bit longer than I would have hoped to get someone on board for that spot, but again, Ms. Mano will be joining us. The prime directive, first and foremost, for Ms. Mano, her office, will be to begin work on the county's first community energy and sustainability master plan. And I know that's a lot of different words smashed together. Basically, it's a real concrete plan for how we are able to tackle the climate crisis and start bringing down our carbon emissions and some of these other goals that we have to get us to where we have our clean energy goals. Back in November of 2020, we passed a resolution that I authored that for the first time puts Prince William County on the board for having sustainability goals by 2030 and 2050 and 2040 and 2035. And so how do we get there? The Council of Governments has had those goals for quite some time. They've refined some of them over the last year or so, but up until that point 2 years ago, we didn't have goals of our own, and now we do. That community energy sustainability master plan is how we get there, and her role will be beginning to work with county staff throughout the county government on how we can make that plan. But another important part of that is the Sustainability Commission. Over the last 2 months or 3 months now, actually, the County Board of Supervisors, including myself, we've been appointing folks to this new Sustainability Commission, and they will be the citizen-driven part of that process as well. Well, they will take their collective expertise, liaison with county staff, and come together to create a list of recommendations, policy goals, things of that nature, to make that master plan a reality, and hopefully come back with some recommendations that will have some weight behind them, and frankly some dollars behind them too, so we can really get rolling with this plan. We're a little bit behind, especially in comparison to some of our neighboring jurisdictions, but Ms. Mano's prime directive will be to work on that master plan, and she probably will be the staff lead that liaisons the most with the Sustainability Commission. Now, how that feeds into this project and other projects at hand, while currently they don't have a direct corollary to land use per se, the Sustainability Commission will be looking at sort of all aspects of county government and our processes, especially how it dives into environmental justice and environmental equity. That was written into the resolution that I authored 2 years ago. And so they will be looking at how all of our comprehensive plans chapters and all of our county's policies delve into elements of environmental justice and environmental equity. So I'm not sure how much play she'll have and they'll have with the Prince William Digital Gateway directly and specifically, but I would imagine that when it comes to the county's policies on, electricity generation, electricity consumption, carbon footprint, carbon emissions, sustainability guidelines, and things like that, there will probably be some recommendations by that community energy master plan to address some of those issues in the county's policies themselves. So it's not just specifically for data centers, but it does include them. But overall, when it comes to county buildings, commercial buildings overall, not just data centers, residential buildings, sort of the entire 360 holistic view of how we do buildings in the county, whether it's new construction, refurbishing existing buildings, weatherization, green infrastructure, sustainability infrastructure, and things of those nature. Nicole, is your hand up a second time? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes, I was just
Okay.
going to comment on what you were just saying. I'm glad to hear there's somebody in the county government with an eye towards sustainability that may be looking at this big comprehensive plan and all the changes, because there's a lot of industry coming, a lot of industrial rezoning, and I hate to see it. I mean, that huge blue swath on the map to the west of Nokesville was really alarming. I don't even live there, but I hope they're paying attention, because that's the character of that whole area is going to change tremendously. And as far as sustainability, a giant beltway splitting through the county isn't going to be great either for our air quality. But with an eye toward that also, can you speak to whether, that article came out recently that said that the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Commission hasn't met in 10 years?
Yes.
They might have something to say about all this building going on in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. Is there any attempt being made to revive that?
Great question, Nicole. As you saw that article, and I think only myself and Supervisor Lawson were commented on that. I became aware of it, and I don't think it was quoted in the article, but I became aware of that particular body because right now the board is going through an audit of all their boards and commissions and committees. It was one of the very first things that one of the auditors that we use was going through. We had to put a hold on that entire audit for a little while because of COVID. Some other issues came up that had to take precedent over that, but we are revisiting that. And for folks that don't know, I sit on both the audit committee for the Board of Supervisors for the county government and the joint audit committee with the school division. So I'm part of looking at different audits and things that we do to increase efficiencies and to frankly look at some of the more obscure and out of date things, such as, like you said, Nicole, that defunct committee.
The Chesapeake Bay Preservation Commission.
The Chesapeake Preservation Commission, exactly. As I said in that article, it's definitely something I'm interested in. I know that right now, as the article said, those sorts of things are being done administratively by county staff, which is completely legal. Like it said, we're able to do that. They're able to find ways to do that without an actual body being stood up to handle that stuff. But to the point, I'm definitely interested in having those conversations about what we can do to bring it back. Definitely something I'm interested in.
Yeah, they said the Public Works Department kind of just, rubber stamps everything and says, okay, you can build there without really looking. It would be good to have a commission that's really dedicated to looking at the effects and with a more critical eye and focus on preserving, our watershed rather than just getting the paperwork off the desk and moving it along. So I would like to see that reactivated.
Yeah, I hear you. And as it was said in that article, I actually sit on Council of Government's Chesapeake Bay Committee. So we look at that stuff regionally, but to your point, Nicole, it'd be really great to have a homegrown body that's made up of citizens and experts that are helping to guide the county government in our deliberations about this stuff, and really taking a specific eye on how we're impacting, for better or for worse, the Chesapeake Bay watershed, for sure.
Hey, Kenny, I don't know how to raise my hand.
Okay.
Can you hear me? I'm
I
sorry.
can hear you, Lou.
One comment on the Chesapeake Bay watershed is years ago, the county conducted a study and proposed the Occoquan overlay district to protect the Occoquan. So no building would be limited along the river, just like the Fairfax County side has done, from Occoquan all the way up to Bull Run Park. And to date, it still has not been adopted. And the new plan for hamlets and villages, some of these areas are along the Occoquan, the Dove's Landing one. And so anyway, we really need to take a more serious look at that. A study was completed. Professional people with those backgrounds have gathered in the past, but it's just been sitting on the back shelf. And I think that a serious look needs to be taken in order to preserve water for our residents and all of the needs we have. And then I also wanted to say thank you for bringing up the PDR program last week in the meeting. I think the PDR program is something that is not identified in the current comprehensive plan. We see all kinds of opportunities for development, but we see no opportunities listed for conservation. And farmers and landowners need to have the opportunity to put their land in conservation. They're afraid to sell small tracts or medium-sized tracts or large tracts because they think that the next landowner is going to be the one to strike the gold. The policy is going to change and they'll be the one that gets to build, a 24 unit per acre, high rise on that land and cash out and leave the county. So as I compare the other counties in our area, from Loudoun County to even and Fauquier County, I mean, they have anywhere from 75,000 to 110,000 of lands in conservation easements. If you look at farmland in Pennsylvania, in Cumberland County, and Adams County, PDRs and conservation easements are a huge part of preserving the rural landscape. And we appreciate the rural landscape. It was stated over and over in the surveys. So all we need is a little tiny smidgen of those tax dollars that can be matched with federal, state, and other monies that are available. I mean, we can steal exactly what Loudoun does, exactly what Fauquier does. I mean, the process and procedures are already there in local county governments that surround us, but we need a staff member that processes the applications, that matches the dollars and makes sure that they meet all the stipulations so that we can also preserve our land and not just have it be a developer's free-for-all. I mean, the developers are out knocking on doors. Even at the meeting in Nokesville on Tuesday, there was a land developer there handing out cards. And he said, "Oh, I'm your middleman, and you connect with me and I'll find a developer." Well, he's doing the exact same thing that is being done in the data center overlay, where we have all this land that's sold to these middlemen and speculators that don't have an end unit. And then they're driving up the cost because they're saying that there's not enough land. And these middlemen buying the land out in the farmland are doing the same thing. They're buying the land. They're looking for somebody for 5 10-acre lots or 10 10-acre lots. And they're just holding it until they can say, "Oh, I can put 4 houses here instead of 4, or 40 houses instead of 4. So we have to do a better job kind of meeting the needs of these surveys and what the residents say that they value in our community. I mean, we pay the taxes, give some of our tax money to the things we value. And the other piece of that too is Parks and Rec. I mean, we have 4,400 acres of Parks and Rec. I love our Parks and Rec. I love the Chin Center, the Freedom Center, the programs they offer for our kids in the summer. But we can't just say, "Oh, we have these 2 national parks and therefore we don't buy land." I mean, Fairfax County has 23,000 acres of parkland. We have 4,400. So along the Occoquan, it could be trails. This area up here wedged between a state park and a federal park. It could be a giant county park, or it could even possibly be a state park. I saw Loudoun County has been working a system to create a state park in their western corridor. But we have to have that vision for preservation to make any of that happen. So anyway, that's just a few things. And I do, again, appreciate you bringing that up. Please continue to bring it up and just don't let it go on a back burner, because all that is important to all of us.
I appreciate that, Lori, but you're absolutely right. As I said during that board meeting that you referenced, and I'll get to you in a second, Martin, I know we're running short on time, but I do want to address this. It is part and parcel of what we're talking about here. One of the biggest reasons why I see a lot of folks, to your point, Lori, on why they're looking around and why some of these projects are coming down the pipeline is, frankly, a lot of landowners don't really have a lot of tools right now or options when it comes to what they can do with their land. You know, especially if they're out there in the rural area, they don't have a lot of tools, a lot of options. And Kim Hosen brought it up earlier. You know, we have some of the concepts and the tools that were brought forth from the rural preservation study. You know, and to the point, we adopted the PDR program last year unanimously, and I talked then about us making sure that we need to fund it. Then we get a budget presentation where there's not even $1 for it. And to me, that, as some folks have said, would be a huge missed opportunity. And everyone saw there was bipartisan commentary on that. You know, colleagues that I have that sit technically to the left of me, but are across the aisle to the right of me, we all said the same thing. You know, any budget that we have going forward needs to have money for that PDR program. And like you said at the time, Lori, and like I said during that board meeting, even a modest investment early on will allow those dollars to grow with state and federal matches. We know there are programs out there that as soon as we get an actual PDR program in place and moving, there are an exponential amount of growth that can happen with those dollars that can stretch quite far. And I've said this before too. I'm going to let Martin speak right after I'm done with this point. I think that our PDR program, if done right, should not just be in the rural area. I think there are definitely lands in mid-county and even some lands in the eastern part of the county where I live that would be great candidates for a PDR program to give some of these folks the opportunity, whether they're a farmer or they're just a larger lot owner, or even if they have a modest amount of land in mid-county that they aren't looking, they're looking around, they're not sure what their options are. Let's talk about purchasing the development rights for that land, putting in a permanent conservation easement. So, you know, 20, 30 years from now, when we're still looking for areas to build, those areas are protected in perpetuity. You know, conservation easements are one of those things where, you know, you can't just do a rezoning and take that away. You can't just do a proper waiver and take that conservation easement away. There are strong protection for preserved development rights areas and those conservation easements. And I think there are candidates all across the county. We just need to fund. So I agree with you 100%. So Martin, go for it. Sorry, I talked a lot there.
Oh, no, it was great. It was a great back and forth. And I always appreciate Lori Fenn's comments, and she covered a lot of ground there. And I'm going to do another kind of follow on here off of Lori. Couple different things. First is the park issue. She brought up a great point about parks and the lack of parks, especially in mid-county. And I just want to remind everyone that the Davis Ford Park, which is the old Occoquan Forest sewage treatment plant, is in the works. And Supervisor Boddye, at the last board meeting, I think it was the last board meeting. Anyway, he put in a marker there to make sure it was still on the radar. We've been trying to get this thing done for years and years and years. And there was a long drawn out process to decommission it from when it was a sewage treatment plant. That's all done now. It's been turned over to the Board of Supervisors. It's just a matter of getting a few bucks. Minimum, from what I understand, is about $250,000 to $300,000 to get a portage on there and get this thing open for passive rec. And so hopefully we can do that very quickly. So that it's if I'm not mistaken, 47 acres, I believe. And it's a beautiful, beautiful area. There's some pictures of it on the Midco website if you want to take a look. It'll be a great asset. And the other thing Lori mentioned that's really important is the overlay district. But I just want to make sure everyone's aware that, you know, there's a lot of things, or I shouldn't say a lot of things. There's things we don't like about this comprehensive plan, proposed changes to the land use chapter. There's some things we do like in Mid-County. And one of those things is the agriculture and forestry T1A designation for Mid-County. And that would be basically a down planning for Mid-County, which would reduce the density for new projects to about half of what it is now. So the density would be reduced, and we have some very environmentally sensitive parcels that are undeveloped in Mid-County. One is 650 acres. There's others that are around that are very environmentally sensitive right near the Occoquan Reservoir. So this is a great tool for us in Mid-County to protect our environment. And in some respects, Midco and we've been working with Supervisor Boddye, Supervisor Vega to try to implement this overlay district for a while now. And it's been a struggle, but this T1A designation could be a big help. It would solve some of those issues that we have in Mid-County, and it would help us a lot in Mid-County. I realize for the rural area, there's still work needs to be done. It would still be an increase in density in the rural area, but in Mid-County area, it's an improvement. So we need to kind of synthesize those things and make it a plus for everyone. But just wanted to mention that this is something that's a positive that's coming out of this comp plan update that hopefully everyone will support. And I'll shut up now. Thanks, Kenny.
No, appreciate that, Martin. And I do appreciate anyone who comes with positive feedback as well, because we need both. A lot of concerns were shared on this listening session, which is fine. But I also want to hear from folks that have some positive news to share. And I know that very early on, Martin, you did indicate to me, even I think you indicated to me in text, hey, we love it in Midco. So I appreciate that. And, especially now that I represent even larger share of Mid-County with the new boundaries, I'm always glad to hear that. That being said, in my final thoughts on what's been discussed, the overlay is something I'm interested in talking about. The Occoquan overlay, we've talked about that at length before. We are pushing county staff about it. And in terms of, I know a much larger subject that came up as a result of the Prince William Digital Gateway is a study of the water and the hydraulics of the hydrology of what's going on. That is near and dear to my heart. Nicole said it well. As the Occoquan District Supervisor, I have to be the backstop when it comes to what happens to the Occoquan watershed. And I take that seriously. That being said, we did get a memo. Anyone that goes to the Prince William Digital Gateway website can actually see a link about a memo we received late last year in regards to a potential water study to be done about the potential impacts of development, not just of data centers or residential development, but water levels overall from putting more impervious surfaces down, some of the things that Nicole and other people mentioned. And I'm very interested in getting that study moving. There's even a price tag for it, which in the grand scheme of things is not a large amount of money. And it actually also gets at something that I know Lori Fenn talked about a lot, which is getting another well, another monitoring well put into Mid-County, because right now there isn't one. We have one near Prince William Forest Park. We have one up on the far western end of the county. We don't have one in Mid-County. And if we're going to do some real water monitoring, we need to have another one somewhere in Mid-County. That being said, it is something I'm very interested in, and we are in budget season right now. So I am going to be looking to see what we can do about getting that water study done. And I know that folks are also very interested in seeing about not only just in terms of Pageland, but overall what all the impacts of potential development has on the watersheds, whether it's the Occoquan, whether it's the far west, the Bull Run area, or even some of the stuff that's just off of the eastern side of the county into the Potomac. I'm interested in those things too, and so we'll continue to look into those issues. Want to say thank you, everyone. We are out of time. I know we got into some really good conversation there right at the end, but I do appreciate everyone who joined us tonight. Occoquan District residents, Potomac District residents, Coles District residents. I know we had a sampling of across the county involved in this conversation. I especially want to thank my staff, Julie Cottrell, Emily Guerrero, and Jason Schreiner for their support as always with getting these things up and running. And again, If you think of anything to ask or comments, please reach out to my office. I think the slide with our email addresses is still up there for everyone to see. So please reach out to us. Again, I'm still in the data collection phase of this process. We won't be seeing any sort of board votes for quite some time. So please continue to give me your comments and your feedback. I do take them in consideration. Thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenny. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.